Cheers. Well, all right. Welcome to the April board meeting, and if you would, let's stand for an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Rob Robinson, he's the board chairman of Christian Friends of Korea. You'll come up, Rob, and you can speak into the microphone there.
Sit on this side or?
You can stand, just get close enough to the microphone. That's good. Yeah, just pull off. There you go.
Okay, let us pray. Father, we thank you for this town council and for this meeting and for all that are here. We thank you for your presence with us. And as we deliberate different things, we just ask that your Holy Spirit will be with us and that we will make good decisions. Father, as we pray for ourselves here, we pray for our state government, our federal government, for President Biden, and for others who lead us. We ask that your Holy Spirit will be with them and that they too will lead us properly. And we thank you for the privilege that we can meet like this. We think of folks in China, Russia, North Korea, and other places who cannot freely meet and cannot vote in people to make their own decisions. And we just pray for them and ask for your watch care over them. And so we just again ask for your presence with us this evening. And we ask it in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you, Rob. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Just a quick announcement, and it really just pertains to our prayer time, and I think we've had prayer in our public meetings for as long as I can remember, anyway. And but just to comment that the manner in which we do this is we try to invite a different area pastor or a leader of a not-for-profit in the area. We don't have a design on any particular belief, and we want to be open to all different persuasions. Area ministers, we try to hit every church. Savannah keeps the phone hot, keeping it lined up. But just to a note as to how we do that, and that we are not narrowing in on any particular faith, but we also don't we don't edit either. So who we invite to pray, they get to pray in the manner in which they're accustomed to according to their beliefs. And so just a word on that, which I don't think we've had in some time. And I don't have any other awards or proclamations. And so we do have some people who have signed up for public comment. First, Anthony Pascone.
Yes, sir.
All right. And if you would just address where you live, name and address, and go right ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Give me a chance to sit down.
There you go.
Sure. Testing. Thank you. My name is Anthony Pascone. I am a resident of Black Mountain for 3.5 years, living at 218 Valley Ridge Lane. I also have a son and 2 grandchildren living in Baltimore County as well. This is my first time addressing our town council, and at the onset, I want to acknowledge the difficult work you do as elected leadership for our community. Thank you, y'all. My concern is over the continued degradation of the environment brought about the sustained release of carbon into the atmosphere, brought about the combustion of fossil fuels. In my mind, there is overwhelming measurable evidence that the continued release of carbon will degrade the air quality we virtually need to sustain our lives, as well as being a cause of catastrophic weather and sea level rise events. I am also aware that our very livelihoods and the health of our economy currently depends on the burning of fossil fuels. To move away from the current situation without a viable and sustainable plan would be disastrous to us as individuals, as a nation, and to us as members of the world community. I am here in support of the initiative presented last month to Council by the Citizens Climate Lobby. I am asking Council to adopt a resolution in support of federal climate legislation called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. The carbon fee and dividend methodology presented in this act seems to me the most viable way for the competing groups of citizens, policymakers, aka politicians such as yourselves, and established energy providers to move away from fossil fuel energy. This shift will help clean up the atmosphere, be sustainable, and eventually lower our costs for towns like ours and the economy worldwide. To personalize this issue, here's why I'm here. As a 75-year-old grandpa, I know I have fewer tomorrows than yesterdays. I don't think climate change will impact me very much in my remaining years, but my concern is what kind of world will I and my contemporaries be leaving for our grandkids and the generations to come. And I would ask everyone in this room who have future generations at heart to think about this. What kind of world do we want to leave for our future generations? My asking for our town to adopt a resolution is a very small step towards making a big change that we really need to do. But my 75 years of living has shown me over and over again that small steps are the precursor of making huge changes that can benefit us all. I thank the council for the consideration of my request.
Good job, thank you. That was a good solid 3 minutes as you could get.
Do you need a copy of this?
I know, that's okay, thank you.
Next is Steffi, and you'll have to help me again with your last name, Steffi, I'm sorry. Roush, I'm sorry, thought it was I'm glad I asked because I thought it began with a P. You have 3 minutes and name, address, etc.
Steffi Roush.
Do you want to sit, talking to the mic?
Oh, yeah. The latest IPCC report came out recently saying it's now or never on climate. As leaders of this community, I implore you to act now. I don't say this to scare you. I say this because I believe it is never too late to leave the world a better place for future generations than that which will result if we give up. I hear too often from legislators that it will cost too much or that it is too political. It is quite the contrary. The cost of inaction is vastly greater than the cost of action, not to mention the hit to our economy and an unlivable world. And what's political about looking at cost? What's political about paying for what we pollute on the front end versus paying for flooding, fire damage, and food and water shortages on the back end? Unless we address the inequity of what we are paying for, no one is going to change. And subsidizing fossil fuels to keep energy costs low is not going to help. In fact, President Reagan said it best. We should tax the things we want less of in the world and subsidize the things we want more of. Right now, we're doing the opposite. We need to fix what economists call a market failure, to embed the social cost of what carbon is doing to society in the things that we buy. We must start paying for pollution on the front end, not the back end, to save us all money. That's where carbon pricing comes in. And only our federal government can implement that, not the energy companies, not the people, not even cities. In fact, cities are limited in what they can do until we fix this big problem of cost. And whether we like it or not, carbon pricing is happening around the world. The IPCC and the World Bank call it an international solution because it enacts a border carbon adjustment to encourage other countries come on board. In fact, those who move the fastest will save the most money because as fossil fuel costs go up, renewables will come down. So consider your costs now and into the future. Weigh the cost of renewables trending downward and gas prices trending upward. Protect the poor with a carbon dividend versus hurting the poor with a carbon tax. And help the US become more energy efficient and independent versus reliant upon other nations like Russia. Solarize and weatherize your buildings, electrify your car fleets, but most of all, show our federal legislators that you support action and want a carbon fee and dividend solution to help bring your costs down. Thank you for listening and hopefully leading on the issue. I have left you some handouts that I think will help
Thank you, Stephanie.
in your understanding. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bob, and I'm sorry I can't read the last name. C-U-M-B-E-B-I.
Okay, I'm Bob Cumbie, and I live at 68 Wagon Trail, that is in Highland Farms. I live there with my wife. And I'm asking the Black Mountain City Council to join 7 other cities in North Carolina in endorsing the citizens' climate lobbyist approach to climate change. My wife and I saw Stephanie's presentation she made at Highland Farms, and we were so impressed that we joined CCL. This is an important issue, it's global, and we all need to do our part. If you take action, you will know you have done your part to save our beautiful planet. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Bob. Jane Galway?
Yes, thank you. I'm Jane Goldthwait, and I live here in Black Mountain at Gibbons Highland Farms. I come with a great concern for climate change. We see the effects in flooding, erratic temperature changes, and dry spells. I wish the town of Black Mountain to act with others to work for our best interests to deal with this problem. First, the United States needs to get rid of the subsidies for fossil fuels and save us on taxes. Also, we need to endorse the Citizens Climate Lobby policy to have a carbon-free and dividend approach to work for zero carbon emissions by 2050. Citizens Climate Lobby lobbies for the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, HR 2307. In addition, we need to have town contracts for electricity obtained from clean energy like solar and wind. And I as an individual can't do that, but the town can and the county can. The town needs to buy vehicles that run on clean energy and efficiently. We can require all new construction be buildings which are more efficient in controlling the temperature. There are many actions which can be taken by our town and working with our state and nation and the rest of the world. We need all of these tools in our toolbox. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. Ann Lutz.
Good evening, Ann Lutz, 211 North Park Lane, Black Mountain. I just want to give you an update on the project in front of my house. 211 North Park Lane has a parallel street called South Park Lane. It comes to a point, and on that, what is referred to as a corner lot is now a building site. Every single tree was taken off that building site, 50 of them that were sold for timber, plus every other small tree. And it took the entire tree canopy away. Taking the tree canopy away adds to the heat in an area. It takes away the ecology that's needed to support wildlife and birds. And it takes away the beauty of the area. So that's gone, and we can't do anything about that. And I know that the town staff does look at the Elevate plan and the other comprehensive plans, and I can't tell you how many times I have filled out comprehensive plans. Just did another one last week for 2043, which I won't be around to see. But I just want to know that these comprehensive plans have some kind of actionable items in them, and that somebody looks at them for accountability at a certain period of time, because it's pointless to keep saying the same things over and over that we want in our community and may not be, is not followed very closely. I know that we need infill building, and I'm not against infill building, but no one ever showed us a picture in one of these comprehensive plan surveys that looks like what's in front of my house. And I don't think anybody would have said, that's what we want in front of our house. And now this gentleman's trying to put a second building by changing some survey things around. So at any rate, I just implore us to, one, I know later on there's going to be a tree ordinance that we're going to be talking about, and I hope that we'll all support a very stiff tree ordinance. We don't need to give in to developers any longer. We don't need a lot of incentives to build here anymore. We have people coming here right and left, and I think we are going to have to stiffen our zoning and our permitting and our build a tree ordinance if we want to look anything at all like the community that we've set forth in our Elevate plan. But thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Tracy Rand? How do I spell your last name, Tracy?
M-U-N-N, think of fun, think of learn. Okay, I got a real easy request for y'all. I would like to know if,
I'm sorry, your address?
I'm sorry, 48 Laurel Lane, pink cottage, it's real cute. Anyway, there used to be a crosswalk on Broadway, kind of midways between Town Hardware and Henson's. And I think when the street got repaved a little while ago, the crosswalk went away. And I have a relative that happens to own Seven Sisters Gallery, and I'm a big time litter picker upper, so I'm around town all the time. And I think it's real dangerous in that area. People are not gonna go up to that light or down to that light, they wanna go right in the middle. So just wondering if maybe the town might put that crosswalk back. So, there you go.
thank you. We'll try to remember at the end of the meeting to, or perhaps the town manager can follow up with you on that and give some information to you. Okay? And that's it for public comment.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I have about 10 to read, if you don't mind,
10.
that came in today. First being from Dr. Heath. I'm probably going to pronounce these last names wrong, so forgive me. I'm going to say Rada. Mr. Mayor and Town Council members, first of all, let me express my gratitude as a resident of Black Mountain for your leadership. It has been Peggy's and my privilege to live in this wonderful town for several years, and we value its heritage as well as look forward to its future. We appreciate your care in helping our community make wise decisions to move us forward. I'm sorry I'm unable to be with you in person to share these comments, but I have a family conflict which prevents me from joining you. I come before you as another voice to support the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. I do so as a citizen of Black Mountain and also in my role as a past moderator, which is the highest elected office of the Presbyterian Church in the United States. If you have questions about that role, Councilman Hay can speak eloquently about it. Our denomination applauds this bipartisan effort and its co-sponsors. Now more than ever, we need to find shared support for our Earth's problems. We believe this is essential, for together with our concern for the planet goes our concern for the most vulnerable people living on it. Others will go into more detail as to what is desired and needed. I urge you to give positive consideration and support to their recommendations. And thank you for hearing us. Dr. Heath Rada, 219 Valley Ridge Lane, Black Mountain. This is Claire Danielson. I do not have an address. Greetings, I'm unable to attend, so I'd like to submit these comments for the meeting. I want to let the council know how much the Dr. John Wilson Community Garden means to me. I've had a personal plot there for 5 years, volunteered for Bounty and Soul, and I'm currently a volunteer member of the compost crew. Besides giving me an area to grow my own fresh produce, the garden gives me a sense of community and pride, which is so important these days. But the garden doesn't just benefit me and others who garden there. It also benefits the community at large. The food is grown for Bounty and Soul. It provides a place for community to bring their kitchen compost, and it provides social, volunteer, and educational opportunities for families, schools, and the general public. I believe there is so much more to be done at the garden to benefit everyone in our town. The potential is tremendous, and I hope you will all protect it and help it grow and prosper. Thank you for your time. This is Karen Hatley. I don't have an address for this one. I would like to express my support for our community garden. Dr. Wilson started the community garden, and Diana McCall has grown the community garden immensely, with Lucy continuing in her footsteps. The growth of the garden with Diana has been awesome. The amount of food that is grown and donated to the community has grown every year. Many thanks to Diana and all the volunteers who make it happen. I've had my spot since 2015, so this will be my 8th year. We needed the community garden in the past to grow organic, clean food, but we need it even more now. We need to be able to continue growing food that is clean. The activity of growing the food, working the soil, and being with others doing the same growing is in itself positive. Please continue to support the community garden. This is from Elizabeth Kaiser. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Mel Kaiser and I have lived here since 2002. We want our town's budget to prioritize the environment, even if this means spending more in the short term to achieve long-term benefits of carbon reduction. For the sake of our children and grandchildren and generations beyond them, please invest in electric vehicles now. Why can't Black Mountain unite on a goal and a plan to address climate change? Why can't we go on record, as Asheville did some years ago, to support the bipartisan-sponsored federal bill to reduce carbon? We are eager for leadership that pursues a sustainable future. This is, I can't say this guy's name, Mr. Sotvika. Dear Black Mountain Town Council, living in Western North Carolina is a blessing, and many people are beginning to realize it. This region has been designated as a good place for climate refugees, as we are seeing the impacts with rapidly increasing home prices that simply cannot meet demand. Although we need to find more ways to urbanize in patterns that align with our goals, we also need to take a stand to support good policy for the future, as we are quickly running out of time. Let's follow the market-based climate recommendation of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. When business interests step up, you know it's time to take a stand. The smartest thing about supporting the Citizens Climate Lobby proposal is that it calls to put a price on carbon and to return revenues to the public via the fee and dividend solution. Let's choose a policy that helps our community align with the 45 countries that have some form of carbon pricing in place. Every bit counts. You have been elected to lead our community. If ever there has been a need for clear leadership, it is now. Thank you for your service to our community and for considering to support this market-based solution proposed by the Citizens Climate Lobby. Hannah Weber, 663 Pageant Town Road. I will be unable to attend the meeting tonight, but I fully support the adoption of purchasing electric vehicles and other carbon-reducing infrastructure in town. Thank you. Doug Brock. I have been a Black Mountain resident and a local real estate investor for nearly 4 decades. If you think our population growth problems are difficult to manage now, just look at what is coming over the next 40 years. Much of the upcoming human migration will be caused by climate change, and all of Western North Carolina is going to be recognized as a place of refuge. Surely we can be smart investors and at least buy all electric vehicles from this day forward. So there will be more days to enjoy our high quality of life here. Patricia Thompson. My name is Patricia Thompson, and I'm a resident at Gibbons Highland Farms and a member of their sustainability committee. I'm asking the Black Mountain City Council to seriously consider endorsing the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act like 7 other municipalities in North Carolina. This approach is considered the most effective at getting us to 0% carbon emissions economy-wide by 2050 and the least expensive way to do it, while also helping to grow our economy. The idea is simple. Those who pollute should pay a price for their pollution, especially high emitters. Carbon pricing policy is one of the most powerful tools for reducing emissions, which is why countries like Switzerland and Canada have implemented the carbon fee and dividend approach, and 64 installations around the world have implemented some form of carbon pricing. From what I understand, North Carolina has fallen behind on meeting our carbon reduction goals, and cities need to do more to help make this happen fast. By simply signing a resolution in support of a carbon price, your efforts would become more in reach because electric cars and renewable energy sources would become more affordable for the city and residents to purchase, and a carbon dividend would help offset the temporary rising costs to low and middle income Americans. Just makes sense. I'm asking each and every one of the Black Mountain City Council to not only endorse this approach, but to make it a unanimous decision. And thank you for your time. Andy Gibbon, Dynamite Roasting. Good afternoon. My name is Andy Gibbon. I've been a resident of Black Mountain for 20 years and a Black Mountain business owner now for 14. My company, Dynamite Roasting Company, knows firsthand the effects of climate change on the coffee industry. We see it affect the supply of quality coffee and the lives of the coffee farmers we work with and visit at origin. I have endorsed the Energy Initiative and Carbon Dividend Act because it is a market-based revenue neutral solution that's both effective and transparent. I encourage the town of Black Mountain to join me in endorsing the act to push for legislation at the federal level. Additionally, I'm excited to share that last week, Dynamite Roasting purchased a 100% electric delivery vehicle. Paired with 156 solar panels on the roof of our Swannanoa roastery, the van is entirely powered by the sun and produces no emissions. Though Dynamite strives to be a leader in sustainable business, I am a business person first. The cost of an electric vehicle was similar to the price of the conventional gas version. After grants and rebates, the solar array cost us nearly nothing and powers our entire building and 3 vehicles with no electricity or gasoline expenses. The decision to change to solar and electric vehicles make clear financial sense in addition to doing what is best for our planet. I urge the town of Black Mountain to look into becoming a leader in sustainable practices with a similar eye on the long-term financial bottom line. Thank you for your consideration. 2 more. Bud Rainey. As a co-owner of Louise's Kitchen, I'm writing to support a climate resolution to be signed by the town of Black Mountain. Price on carbon with money given back via a monthly carbon dividend check is a way forward to help us meet our climate goals while helping to grow our economy. Cities like ours will benefit from this option as well as small businesses because people who have more money in their pockets tend to spend it on food, beverages, and retail items. I support this alongside 150 other businesses and NC11 district, and I hope that you will too. Last one. Louise Lorton, a director at one of the largest professional service firms globally, lives in Black Mountain. Louise is an active climate lobbyist at work and personally. She is a member of the firm's Eco Innovators, through which she has led learning initiatives and helped develop a global sustainability learning course, Sustainability Now. As an avid hiker, biker, and stargazer, Louise has always revered our natural world and felt compelled to protect it. She joined Eco Innovators and the Citizens Climate Lobby because she wanted to be part of a community of change agents. She could not stand by in the face of an ecological crisis and hopes to inspire others to act as well. She wants to help make Black Mountain the town that takes a stand and commits to climate action. Starting small with the carbon dividend bill. To her, building a better world means truly building a world that works better, one that is sustainable for generations to come. We need to empower the people of Black Mountain to protect and care for our planet, inspiring meaningful change both at work and in their personal lives. As a popular tourist attraction, one whose businesses are largely family-owned and operated, we want to see the town prosper and set standards around conservation. Starting with this endorsement, we can show our townspeople, our visitors and investors, and the rest of America that we have listened, we understand, and see the impact climate change is having, and we want to be part of the solution. As a reminder, the Energy Innovation Carbon Dividend Act will help reduce America's carbon pollution to net zero by 2050, puts a fee on carbon pollution, creating a level playing field for clean energy. Money collected from fossil fuel companies goes to Americans, which includes all of Black Mountain in the form of a monthly carbon cashback payment so that everyone can afford the transition. This does not cost the council money. When voting for this resolution, it is one of the few asks of the council that simply requires a commitment to change and a solution that will help our townspeople, especially our lower income households. This policy is affordable for ordinary Americans because it puts money in your pocket. Money collected from the fee is given as a monthly dividend or carbon cashback payment to every American to spend with no restrictions. Most low and middle income Americans will come out financially ahead or break even. The bill allows for everyone to show commitment to the climate solution, and it's just the beginning. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Council, we need to amend our agenda if you wish to do so. The Beautification Committee, Gail Broomer is here too, and wants, ask council for a few minutes, 10 minutes or less to communicate, and that's agreeable. I entertain a motion to amend the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, and Gail, you would be first. Okay.
My name is Gail Bromer, and I am the chairman of the Black Mountain Beautification Committee. Susan Moynihan is the vice chairman, and she's going to help me with my clicker because last year I got lost in the presentation and forgot to keep up with the slides. So thanks for the opportunity to share some of our accomplishments this, our second year of the pandemic, as well as our hopes and goals for the coming year. Black Mountain is the place that we call home. The Beautification Committee's mission is to honor the natural beauty around us through our 21 garden sites, our 52 containers, the town square, and the many community events we participate in. We could not do this without the participation of many people. As with any other volunteer group, some assume leadership and some are simply available when there's simply a project that calls us together. We have an executive board of 4 people who assume responsibility for all our garden sites and containers, chairs and committee members for our 21 committees, and a swarm of worker bees. There's no doubt you'll recognize some of the names. We actually take care of, as I said, of 21 garden sites. In this map, you see highlighted all the garden sites that have been completely renovated this year. It has been a year of significant renovation. Led by our garden site manager, Pat Reichenbach, and her husband, Carl, we have taken a critical eye to our gardens. We have asked what the goal of each site is. Do people walk by this area? Do they drive by? Or is there a sign there that should be our focus? We have come to the understanding that plantings should always support the intent of the garden. You might not even recognize the dry cleaners corner as one of our garden sites, but it is. Before, the area was a bit overgrown and needed a little extra work. I think we may have an after picture. Yes. So you see, it was taken apart and made so that you could see the signs, and the focus now is on the signage for people driving by, which really is the intent of that garden. As nice as it is to have a pretty garden, again, you have to get to what is this garden supposed to be doing for us. Next. We have several distinct garden sites within the area around the visitor center. The garden along State Street was redone 2 years ago, but there was a small raised section of the bed attached to it that was built on top of asphalt, and understandably nothing grew there. We moved Rocky the bear to that small area, along with a boulder that's a little hard to see behind that hay bale, to keep people from driving over that area, and added some low-maintenance grasses. The boulder and its installation were provided at no cost by whatever rents. The dogwood tree in the bed along West Street had to be trimmed. The dirt that had built up around the trunk was suffocating it and was removed. We fertilized it this spring and are hoping that the health of the tree will improve so that we can save it. The visitor center volunteers replaced the rotting timbers in the raised beds around the building last fall. Beautification volunteers will trim and plant those beds this year. The welcome sign by Oli Guacamoles is one of our largest sites at 60 feet long. This project is a great example of the community working together. Public Works helped us install some boulders at the corner to discourage motorists from driving over the edge, lifted and reset the community board sign that has the Kiwanis and some other names in the back that's hidden by those roses, and removed and reinstalled the welcome sign itself after having it repainted. We hired a local arborist to trim the larger trees and bring them away from the power lines. A granite bench is being donated and installed by the local funeral home. And a backdrop of rhododendrons has recently been added along the fence as a backdrop. Everything that was planted here that you saw in the before picture was removed, trimmed, or replanted as need be. 36 new shrubs were planted in that renovation. The next garden is called Centennial Park East. It's the corner of Broadway and Sutton near Take a Hike. We've taken this garden back to its original purpose to highlight the granite sign celebrating the town's centennial. It was a beautiful garden before, but you never saw the sign. This was another garden where we needed to take out everything to be renovated. The stone path was created in front of the sign to ensure that the sign will always be visible. The entire garden was edged. A beautiful maple tree that was growing into the nearby parking space was root pruned and transplanted with some additional muscle from Public Works to a better location in the garden. New evergreen plantings were installed as a backdrop to the sign, and additional small shrubs and perennials were added back in. Henson's garden is another of our gardens. It runs along the side, obviously, of Henson's. And there are a couple trellises you might have noticed that were added several years ago. But this large holly was growing 3 feet into the sidewalk. So we hired an arborist to trim it up and back, and were able to save the tree. What we call Love's Parking Lot, the parking lot in the center of Broadway, excuse me, is another area where the arborist help was needed. The 2 large hollies that you can see in front of that car were growing too close to the roof and side of the dancing dragonfly. They were also growing into the parking spaces. Both were trimmed and trimmed up. In the raised beds along Broadway, 2 other trees needed to be trimmed, and 2 junipers needed to be completely removed because they were significantly reducing the effective width of the sidewalk. There's a water tank beside the well house near the Hill Garden, which we did last year. We got the blessing of the Historic Preservation Commission to create a new mural on that water tank. One of our members, Joyce Black-Wirtz, painted this new mural to complement the perennials planted nearby. Centennial Park West is along Sutton Street, closer to the depot. This garden had a large overgrown arborvitae and several large junipers removed, and a yew had to be trimmed. It's our intention in all of these renovations to replant shrubs that are a more appropriate size when they are mature. It can be a challenge. Even when a plant is supposed to be one size, it can sometimes grow to something significantly larger. You know, the best laid plans just don't always work out. Next this is the Cherry Street bathrooms. This is behind and on the side. The two large hollies were overgrowing their narrow garden along the side of the building, affecting the width of the driveway. They were trimmed by an arborist. He also removed an unhealthy arborvitae and trimmed two large cedars and a dogwood in front of the bathrooms. I happen to think that this nice white wall would be beautiful for another mural, following all the guidelines, of course. Next, the east path on the hill. Go forward just one. There we go. This is the hill garden that goes in between the Sutton Street parking lot and the art center. There's a pathway that Public Works is going to be rebuilding, but there's an actual small garden in between the path and the driveway. The soil and mulch had built up over the years, suffocating some of the plantings. The soil depth was taken down to allow the trees to breathe. Because the trees had grown up, this became a shade garden instead of a sun garden, so many plants were no longer appropriate. Those were removed and replaced with shade-loving plants. Okay. We also held a pruning class in Town Square, followed by a work crew event, sort of to train our own workers. Most shrubs require some kind of pruning so they don't encroach onto the sidewalks or need their shape improved, or they benefit from pruning for denser, healthier new growth. Some shrubs spread by root and need to have those new shoots trimmed back to keep things tidy. We hold a monthly workday in Town Square to maintain these beautiful gardens. But it's okay, it's right. Because the pandemic didn't allow us to have our annual spring garden sale, which is our major fundraiser, we had to get even more creative this year. Thanks to the chamber, we were provided a free space at the Sourwood Festival. We held 3 raffles and received numerous donations. A local wood carver, Sam Moore, displayed his creations and donated a significant portion of his sales to the beautification committee. When the pandemic eased a bit last year, we held our first ever fall garden sale with a smaller number of vendors, and our local woodcarver was there again to support us. At both the Sourwood and the garden sale, we heavily recruited new members and are happy to have grown our membership by 66%. Now we have to actively engage them. Renewing membership is as important as renewing our gardens to keep our project alive. Another project we did, well, no picture. Okay, was we did a pop-up sale in the fall at the tailgate market. They offered us a free space, and we dug plants out of our own gardens, added some rehab plants from a local greenhouse that had closed, and sold plants relatively inexpensively, and had a great time talking with new and experienced gardeners and raised even more money for our ongoing projects. We decorate the town in hay bales, corn stalks, and pumpkins and scarecrows every fall. The elementary school contributed 6 new small fun crows this year, including this owl. We'll be looking at fall decorating as one of our goals this year to see if there are ways to incorporate even more garden sites into our decorating. We also held our holiday greenery sale. Many nurseries closed or had significantly reduced inventory as a result of the pandemic. Lori Pisani worked hard to find us a new vendor, and we raised enough money to again pay to decorate the town in greenery in December. Rejuvenating our holiday decorating is another goal for 2002. Don't know what it will be, but we're looking at options. Deck the Trees is one more example of our involvement in the community. We also share our appreciation to the town departments with fall thank you cookie trays and appreciation luncheon with Public Works Department for all of their support. You may not know that we also offer a small grant program to help local businesses, churches, and neighborhoods kick off their own beautification projects. These grants have supported a community garden, a pollinator garden, plant containers, and garden makeovers at St. Timothy and Lakeview Center, to mention a few. We have several large goals this year. One is to develop a maintenance plan for these containers. Most are 6 years old. Like anything else, they require maintenance: scraping, staining, replacing trim, repairing liners and irrigation systems, to say nothing of the plantings in the 52 containers themselves. We did add one more plant container this fiscal year at the new Cherry Street bump out. Litter and cigarette butts in particular are becoming a greater concern, both along the streets of downtown and the major roads leading into town. We hope to work with the town, the chamber, and the community to create more opportunities for involvement in addition to our spring and fall litter sweeps. April 22nd, we had 42 people participate in the spring litter sweep event, and they collected 61 bags of litter. We have 2 major new projects this fall in areas that we don't normally claim as garden sites. The post office is one. Even though this is not town property, it's an integral part of the community, and as such, we decided it needed a facelift. With the approval of the postmistress, we'll be removing overgrown shrubs and replacing them with size and condition-appropriate plantings. We'll also be adding plants to the mostly empty beds on the south side of the building. And surprise, a renovation of the town hall gardens is our second major focus. We intend to replace 3 missing azaleas along Midlands Avenue, add oak leaf hydrangeas under the trees and along the building nearest to the water department entrance, add plantings to the empty area in the middle of that western wall, and trim the Nandina or take it out entirely so that the planning department can see out of their windows. And we expect to add several abelia to the 2 that are already under the kitchen window. On the south side and around the corner in front of Josh's parking space, we plan to add at least 24 more shrubs and trees. We all feel that that we are a part of Black Mountain, and we enjoy working with all of you and all the town departments and the community to make this the best small town we can. We thank you for your support over the years, and we look forward to working with you all for many years to come.
Thank you, Gail. We so appreciate your leadership and
Thanks.
the work and leadership of the entire beautification committee. And your assistant did a great job with the
Yeah.
clicker there.
Absolutely.
A lot of good focus, a lot of good attention.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
It's been a tremendously busy year. I mean, thanks in large part to Carl and Pat Reichenbach for leading the charge on renovating these gardens, many of which had needed renovations for a while, and we needed a fresh eye and some people with the knowledge to do that. We've undertaken a lot, and it's really beginning to show.
Well, we appreciate it, and I
Thank
think
you.
everybody in town does.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you much. Going to have a plant sale in May?
Yes, we are, May
Right.
20th and 21st.
May 20th and 21st,
Yes.
everybody.
And actually, we had to change location. Monte Vista got an offer they couldn't turn down. So we're actually going to be in the parking lot at Sutton Street, or I'm sorry, on West Street, in between Town Square and the Visitor Center.
Okay,
Yeah.
great,
So
great. The
20th and 21st of May.
all right.
All right.
Put it
Thank
on your
you.
calendar. Thank you. All right. Jamie Matthews, annual water report.
Good evening, council.
You did.
So this is our report for the water department for 2021, which was an interesting year, basically based off the pandemic. So there wasn't a lot of capital project stuff going on, so it actually freed up some time for me to catch up on some stuff that really needed to be caught up on. And so jumping into it, we added some SCADA to the Black Mountain Estates pump stations, which put it at the upper pump house, and also added it to the 2 upper tanks, the small tanks at the top of the mountain, which used to have to be controlled manually. So now we can do it. It's automated also, which saves a lot of time. And there's about 7 houses on that system, and they would continually call in and not have no water. So we put an end to that by installing SCADA, and now we can control it from our telephones like the other part of the system through the town.
Can you tell us what SCADA stands for?
It's actually I could, it's an automated system. I cannot tell you what SCADA stands for. I don't have it in front of me, so.
Yeah.
But it's basically an automated system that's controlled, it's controlled through the web. And just to give you a little bit of history, we used to have to control everything manually. So when our tanks would drop, we would not know that Citizens was out of water if we had a big leak until they called in. Well, if the big tank, which is 1.2 million gallons, was out, then we had an issue. And that happened a lot through the years. So by installing SCADA, the pumps, the whole system is run automated and can be set with limits. So now if we have a leak and it gets to a certain limit, it will automatically notify us that there's a leak, and then the pumps will automatically kick on. The tanks won't go dry, and but it gets very, very in depth is what we can do with that system. But
How secure do you think that is?
I will get into that here in just a few minutes. It's funny. I got something to go over that that I'll touch base on. That hopefully will answer that in more depth. Our AMR installations that's our automated meter system, of course, our automated reads. And we're halfway done with that. We've installed over 2,000 of those, and we've had to do it, of course, budget based on what we budget every year. The cost of those, since the pandemic, everything keeps, inflation keeps going up on our water parts and everything. So they started out around 80, they're up over $90 a piece now. But it's really going good, and it's really serving the purpose that we, initially designed it to do. So we're very pleased with it, and hopefully we can budget enough, to complete the whole system, which will save a lot of time. So here's two major things we worked on. The EPA required us, the state required us to complete emergency response plan for our water system, and also complete a risk and resilience assessment report. We contracted with Flambeau Engineering out of California, who done a very good job, and this was very, very detailed information that we worked back and forth. It went from everything from our financials to the chemicals we use, at what rate it's being fed. It's a very, very detailed, and it took, like I say, 4 to 5 months to put all this together. And I'm proud to say that we completed it. And so with that being said, I just want to read one thing to give you sort of a better understanding, the public and the board too. And it's the purpose. And it says, this risk and resilience assessment of the town of Black Mountain was performed on June 24th, 2021 using the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Vulnerability Self-Assessment Tool, VSAT. Web version 2.0, EPA developed and maintains VSAT Web to serve as an all-hazard risk and resilience assessment tool for water and wastewater utilities of all sizes. Specifically, EPA designed version 2.0 of VSAT Web to assist community water systems with meeting the requirements for risk and resilient assessment in America's Water Infrastructure Act of 2018. So basically, this report covers, like I say, how we operate, how we respond to catastrophic events such as flooding, tornadoes, hurricanes, everything. And and it really goes into, I got a lot of questions in the past few months about the Russian-Ukraine war. If we get hit with a cyber attack, how would we respond? How long could we go with water? I don't want to go too far in depth with that, but in this report, I would like to read something too that was emailed back to me, and this is sort of how I answered the questions I could answer to the public without giving out too much information. And like I say, Flambeau Engineering specializes these and does these all across the United States. And he sent me an email, says, please find the revised assessment which reflects a URI of 68%. To put this in some context, among other assessments I've done, this is considerably higher than the next highest by 20%. So that's something to be very proud of. Out of the whole assessment, we're rated 20% higher in a catastrophic event than other towns and municipalities across the United States that he's done. So, and that, basically they get how we would respond, who would respond, who all's involved across the board from police, fire, public works, like I say, our financials. It's very detailed. These stay in my office. I'd be more than willing to, let Josh have them if y'all would want to look through any of this stuff. It's very interesting. It covers everything from, cyber attacks, just how we would respond in detail.
Well, I suppose it's public information, isn't it?
Should be.
Yeah, I guess it would be, yeah. I'm not really sure
Unless
if it
it
is.
gets into too much detail about specific water infrastructure and where that may
Yeah.
exist.
Well, I'll leave that to the town attorney,
Yeah.
kind of sparse through that, but.
Yeah.
We're at a public meeting and you've announced it, so there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, we completed that, and then we updated the wellhead protection plan, which Debbie Maynard at the last meeting spoke to you a little bit about with rural water. And I was honored to go to Raleigh this past month and accept the award of excellence for the town and a trophy, which we were chosen out of 2 municipalities. There was only 2 in the state that was chosen for the plan. Of course, it was adopted in '99, and there was other staff and other people that originated it and done a very good job with it. We just basically updated it because of the changes and there was a lot of changes. We went from chlorine gas, which was very dangerous, to we don't have chlorine gas now. We don't have no bleach. We used to feed the chlorine gas at several well sites. Now we got one building that we feed all the chemicals out of into the whole system. So we've made a bunch of changes on that, and we completed that, and actually it was completely finalized today, and we've got a copy of the wellhead protection plan that's been updated to this point. I usually try to put in the work orders in a 3-year span, so you can see they went up a bunch this year, and a lot of that, has to do with the pandemic also, and us taking on some new water customers, new water asphalt customers that we took on about.
Remind the public how many we took on.
We took on approximately 600, and I think we've got like 60 or 70 to complete in this phase 2, and then we'll be done. So
we're almost at 600.
we're almost at 600, yes. And so that's one reason why that went up, and then you'll see a lot of that right here too. If you look at the 3-year trend, what we pump to what we bought from Asheville or purchased from Asheville, you'll see from Asheville in 2020 it was 70 million gallons, and then 21 it's 148 million, and that has to do with taking over. Well, there's 2 things. We took over 600 customers, and also because we could not keep up with demand from just our wells, the state was allowing us to run our wells on 16-hour days, which really they're only supposed to be run 12. So they were running overtime for that year. So that shows why we pumped a whole lot less in the blue this year, is because we cut them back to 12 hours. So
You don't only have the new customers that were City of Asheville customers that are now ours, but you've had tremendous growth in the past.
Yeah, and
number of new customers because of new construction has to be.
that is true, and I wished I would have added the numbers of just new water taps that that we took on. It was phenomenal, the amount, and we're still getting them. I think I approved like 6 or 7 just in the past couple of days last week. So it is amazing the amount of growth we're getting, and you can really judge that by the taps that you put in, and where they're at, and if they're so. We have grown tremendously, and that's one reason why you see that top number going up, because we just cannot. We're running our wells, but we cannot. It was a good time that we made the connection with Asheville, because I believe just by doing the numbers that in the winter when the car washes are running, or in the dead of summer or spring when people's doing gardens and pools, that was our 2 times a year that we struggled to keep up, and right there at the end we wasn't keeping up, and we probably couldn't. We could not support the growth here now just on the wells. So
Oh, no.
It's-
A new well in 20 years.
that's right.
20 plus, must be 30 now.
Probably getting close, yeah.
Is there an upper limit to what we can buy from Asheville?
That was said, Josh may have to speak to that a little
Right
more.
now, I think it's around 400,000 gallons a day.
But it rolls, doesn't it? I mean, if we
I mean,
hit
they won't-
that, it rolls up, because I mean, it's an abundant supply. So we're not
I
actually
think the way it
limited.
reads, if you roll over 3 months, it automatically goes up to the next one.
Okay.
So, yeah, they won't cut us off at 400, they will just get
Okay.
it up.
So that's why you see those numbers, where they're at, explains a little bit about that. And then, of course,
Excuse me, Jamie, you might mention it, but for the council and for the public, when you're talking about these pumps have their, they have it's a duplication, is that you have 2 pumps there, right?
depends on which pump station.
The new one.
The new one has 3,
3.
yes,
3.
and what
The
they'll
new
do,
one's the one's pulling it out, and I mean, it's the one that.
it is,
it's got the
and,
volume.
that's correct.
So I wanted everybody to know that, you're not.
Yeah, these pumps are very, very expensive, and, thing about pumps, it ain't something you just order and they have it in stock. These things have to be specially built for the application. And that's why we always try to budget to keep a pump for every pump station on hand. And even now, it would probably be, I'm sure, would be harder to get. So we're setting good on pumps. We've got a spare for every pump station that we have. But they're also set up, some of them set up multiples, and then this one's a triple. So what it does, it'll run 12 hours, it'll kick off, the next one will run 12, it'll kick off, and then the next one they rotate, which gives you a whole lot more hours, and you're not just wearing out one single pump. So,
Can I ask a question? What will the new line that we need to put in that we're.
right, down on 70.
Yeah. What will that actually do to, does it change anything or as far as the volume that you can feed into the system?
It does. What we found out is the old asphalt line that we took over, it's so old, like a lot of lines that's in a lot of systems, the turbidity builds up in those lines and it constricts it. So if you've got a 4-inch line, it's probably actually a 2. And so, without going too in detail and confusing everybody, on these pump stations, they got what they call head pressure. And so it's just like if that line's constricted, it builds head pressure because it can't produce what it should be able to. So we noticed when we fired that pump station up and we were working with asphalt, we had more head pressure than what we should have had. So what it does, it restricts the amount of, or the quantity of water, the volume of water that we could produce if all 3 of those pumps were at full capacity running wide open,
Yeah, okay.
which would be over 1 million gallons a minute, basically.
Well, so that should, once that's in, that should reduce that pressure where you're having to just go 12 hours, 12 hours, 12 hours. It'll help anyway.
Right, and I would never foresee us, knock on wood, ever running 3 pumps and pumping over 1 million gallons a minute, but if we're gonna have a system, we want it to work right. We want it to have that availability. So by putting that new line in, it will relieve that head pressure, and then we can produce the amount of water that it was designed to produce.
So maybe you're gonna mention this, but I think it's good for the public to know that we're having, we're taking a hard look at the entire water system just to sort of, what's the phrase for it? It's a study, but it's a,
Yeah, it's a water system financial analysis.
Yeah. that's, did we award that
Withers
contract?
and Ravenel, it's finished, you'll be getting that
We'll get
presentation
it.
at the end of this month.
Yeah. Go, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jack.
And, touch base too on the wellhead protection plan, because we got it done before May. When I went to Raleigh, it opens up, a significant amount of funding for us to be able to obtain that we normally wouldn't have been able to get for water infrastructure. But there's also a lot of hands in the pot trying to get their hands on that money, but without it, we wouldn't be able to do it. So I failed to mention that. So hopefully we can get some of that money too. And, but this is basically, moving on, this is just basically a breakdown of what those work orders was. And, that was basically the highlight of our 2021, the big projects, because we didn't have a lot of capital projects, but, other than just the everyday routine of, fixing leaks. I think we fixed 69 last year, which is not, it's not unnormal to fix that many or more. And, as freezing and thawing the ground shifts, and it's just a normal thing that you see in all municipalities. But But I'm very proud of where we're going with our water system, and we got some good staff. We got a great water operator, and so I just wanted to share with you that we're 20% higher. But I will say this: this is nothing that I would have any problem with the public seeing. The stuff that I said that I really didn't feel comfortable sharing is just stuff that's not in here.
Right.
So, but
Well,
we're
I just made the comment just for clarity purposes.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. So, has anybody got any questions?
questions for Jamie? On capital projects, again, I'd mentioned for council and for the public that because has it been 2 years since we changed our tap fees? I mean, they're not called tap fees anymore, but they're called.
System development fees.
Yeah, three,
Yeah.
around three.
Mhm.
But that's resulted in the capital funds available in the water fund. It's pretty substantial. And so
Yeah.
we have some opportunities to do some budgeting for capital projects that are on the books for sure.
Yes,
That we have.
absolutely. Yeah, we've got some capital projects. We've got several projects this
Right.
year that we've
Right.
already been obtaining quotes for, and we're just
Right.
waiting to receive them now.
Any other, yeah, go ahead, Archie.
Are we still having difficulties getting the taps? I know before.
Well, we had to definitely get in the parts, the setters.
Mhm.
We can make the taps, but we actually had to put a freeze and keep so many in stock for us as an emergency, for the residents that's already here. And then, so they're slowly trickling in, but we're back in good shape now.
Good.
The main thing we see is our water lines. So I've been sending some information to Josh that I received through our suppliers and stuff, and just water line is almost a year out.
You mean, so if you had a repair in some places, just getting the material to repair a line, we could be in a difficult situation.
If we didn't have stock, fortunately, we've done really good about having extra water line. We've got extra ductile iron, PVC. We try to stay stocked up, and when we went into this, we were set in really good shape. So I'm happy to be supplied. But if for new projects, even if we had the capital projects to do, it could be possibly 2023 before we could even get the supplies to do it.
Join the world, huh?
Yeah. So that's it.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Jamie.
Yep. Thank you.
Appreciate all you
Thank
do.
you very much.
And your crews. Josh Henderson, Parks and Rec.
All right. You have in your packet a detailed handout. This presentation will just kind of be an overview of that. So this is a 2021 annual report for Recreation and Parks. Let's kick it off looking at events. So 2020 was a tough year for us. As you all know, with recreation, our operations kind of depend on people gathering together and doing stuff. So 2021 was a good year for us to bounce back. You can see some of the highlights there with our events. I think the biggest thing that we did last year that had the best turnout was Park Rhythms. We made the decision to move to Veterans Park as a location for that, kind of in preparation for the pandemic, because we just didn't know what those restrictions were going to look like. And after having no Park Rhythms in 2020, we made the decision to move there to give us a larger place to hold that event, and it went really well. Youth sports, again, we continue. As you all know, indoor soccer is our biggest youth sport by and large. You can see some of the other things there, followed closely by our swim league. We did start outdoor soccer last year. That was kind of a pandemic project when we were looking at what can we do. Outdoor sports were one of the things that we did. So we did do outdoor soccer last year, and we're going to be doing that again this year. Along with the Youth Disc Golf League, that was also created during the pandemic. Again, just to try to engage kids in a safe manner. Outdoor programs was another kind of area of our department we didn't have pre-pandemic. So you'll notice there's kind of a theme here. A lot of these things we kind of developed and we're keeping because they were highly successful. With outdoor programs, we felt like we were in an area that we are fortunate to have lots of trails and outdoor activities, and so we wanted to take advantage of that. You can see some of the numbers there from some of the things we did. This is also heavily dependent on a lot of partnerships in this community. We partner a lot with some of the conference centers and the camps for using their disc golf courses, their trails, their climbing towers, their indoor climbing, archery, things of that nature. And so that has gone really well. We had a really good pool season last year. Despite not filling all of our vacancies with employees, we were able to run the pool at full force last year. There were 2 other pools in our area that were closed, which could have contributed to the high numbers, but we had a really good pool season last year. Summer camp last year was challenging for us. We did not have any staff, so we had to reduce the capacity to 50%. And we did run camp for 6 weeks, and they meet at the Lakeview Center. We also partner with the Black Mountain Tennis Association, and they volunteer and run a tennis camp for us as well. Active aging adults at the Lakeview Center has probably been our most challenging bounce back from the pandemic. As you're probably aware, it is our most at-risk population that we serve. And so we are still getting back to pre-pandemic numbers there. There's just a lot of hesitation to rejoin some of those activities, and understandably so. You can see some of the highlights that we did there. We continue to have a very successful meal site through Council on Aging that we host every day. And we were really grateful to be able to partner with some of one of the pharmacies in the area with Health Ridge and doing the vaccine clinics last year. That was, I think, really huge for a lot of people in the community. Community Guard continues to grow. You heard from some people earlier during the citizen comments. You can see some of the numbers there. We continue to grow every year. We're busted at the seams in the community garden, continuing to produce food. We have lots of volunteers, interns through the Parks and Greenways Foundation. And yeah, we running out of plots. Adult sports. You guys have heard a lot from these 2 areas, I'm sure, over the last little bit. But pickleball and tennis are our 2 main adult sports that we're currently running, and you can see some of the numbers there. We were fortunate last year, thanks to you guys and giving us the funding, we were able to open up our new tennis courts at Lake Tomahawk, which I think have been used a lot by the public, and everybody seems to really enjoy that. Rentals. We do a lot of facility rentals. You can kind of see those. Again, 2021 for us was a year where we were still kind of getting some of those things reopened, especially the indoor facilities. I think we only spent about half the year with those open, while the outdoor facilities remain in operation. Some of the improvements that we were able to get going with last year, we started some work on Cragmont Park towards the end of last year. Work on the Greenways master plan, putting in that walking path down there. We continue our part of grant at Veterans Park. We put in some additional trail, and then we are should be finalizing here soon to put our bathrooms in down there, along with the other stuff that took place in the year prior. Again, partnerships. We've done a lot with partnerships, and it's a lot of what we do, being able to run some of the programs that we run. Put in new disc golf signage, again, the new tennis courts. If you've been around Lake Tomahawk, we installed a lot of new signs there last year. And we worked with the community garden on some composting initiatives, and we got a survey put together and distributed that, and we're looking at what to do with that information moving forward. That's all I have. You guys have any questions?
Josh, good
Yeah.
report. Questions for Josh?
Josh, could we get Ella in here sometime?
Oh, absolutely.
And
I mean,
recognize the work she did.
absolutely.
It
Yeah,
was really impressive.
we planted, I don't know, I want to say 6 or 7 trees through the Ellis Clean Air Project last year, which was money she raised through her artwork that was chosen for a sign, and that money was given to us, and we bought some trees and planted them in the parks and around
And she's
town.
how old?
I don't have no idea.
Right. So it was,
All kids look the same age to me. So,
So, Josh, why don't you maybe see if you could come in at the first of the May meeting? And we'll
Absolutely.
recognize
that would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Be great. Any questions for Josh? Great.
Thank you, Josh.
Josh gets the badge for being the shortest.
Clear and concise.
Well, yeah, a lot of moving parts there. All right, Josh, the consent agenda.
The other Josh. All right, we'll go through the consent agenda. 5A will be adoption of minutes, March 14th, 2022 regular session, and March 10th, 2022 agenda meeting. 5B is US 70 waterline engineer selection. So this is funding, just real quick, this is funding that that the council had decided to allocate out of the ARP money, which is the American Rescue Plan. I was going to say Recovery and Reinvestment, but that one was a few years ago. So we did solicit for bids for the engineer, not bids, but requests for qualifications. And we got three. We've chosen, out of those three, we've chosen Civil Design Concepts to do this water engineering for us for the US 70 water line. 5C is Martin Luther King Jr. Marker letter of support. This would be to support a letter for a Martin Luther King Jr. marker in town. 5D, budget amendment for the underpass pedestrian connection. This is the pedestrian connection that leads you to the community garden from the Veterans Park north side. That ended up coming in about $23,000 more than we budgeted. This is to take out, essentially this is to get right with DOT. This is to take out pretty much all the soil and pave that inside of that barrel. So that came in at about $42,000, and I think we budgeted about 20.
Josh, I know that has flooded a few times in the past couple of years. Are we worried about the paving, worried about flooding issues with that paving?
I mean, I think we're always going to worry about the flooding issues in that area, but it's just, it's in the floodway. It is what it is. There's just not a lot we can do with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Is this one of the projects that the Greenways Committee was gonna contribute some funding to?
This one, it was a different project.
I think it was, that was the Greenway, actual Greenway path right on the, I don't know which direction.
South side.
Going toward the,
Yeah.
going toward the garden.
5E is a call for public hearing to close a portion of unopened platted portion of Buckeye Street. That public hearing would be on June 13th. And lastly would be a budget amendment for the Black Mountain Beautification Committee grant that was mentioned a few minutes ago. We did receive a grant from the Beautification Committee, I think in the amount of $750, is that right? To do some new plantings over at the Lakeview Center for Active Aging. And that's your consent agenda.
Great, thank you. Any questions on the consent agenda for Josh? And if there are none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Cotillar. Any comments? If not, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Does any member of the public wish to speak? We don't have any unfinished business about, make public comment on any of our 4 items of new business. Hearing none, we'll move on to our American Rescue Plan adoption of policies and procedures. I believe that's town attorney.
I'm gonna take the next 6 hours too. I've sat through 4 hours. I think Tammy's into about 10 hours. And if you want it verbatim, we'll tell you how to sign up, $725, and you can watch them. I'm gonna run through the policies you got tonight for adoption. To use the American Rescue Plan money, you've got to have certain policies in place. If you take the time to read the policies, they're not a big difference from what you've seen. We've got most of these in place in some form or fashion, but there are particular requirements to use these funds. These are written in a way that these are specific to the rescue plan money, so that you don't have to start following these guidelines for everything the town does. That said, when you start looking at anything we do, even though there's rescue plan money, you have to follow certain guidelines. You can't ignore town guidelines. And just to toss out an example, we've got a records retention policy. The federal plan requires that you keep records of all your activities using that money for a period of 5 years after the last date you spend that money or the closeout period, which is the end of 2024. That period is going to be shorter in some cases than the town's plan. In that case, the town plan stays in place. You don't get to elect a shorter if the town plan would say you got to keep those records for a longer period. But I'm going to just jump through these really quick. The ones that you'll be adopting tonight, there's one for the resolution for allowable cost and cost principles. And that policy sets out the principles you follow deciding whether or not, or actually that you are directed to follow if you're going to determine whether you can use the rescue plan money. And those are subjective, of course, but there's a large list attached to that policy that are very specific, what you can and can't use the money for. Some of the big things you cannot use the money for, you can't use rescue plan money in any borrowing transaction. You can't use $20,000 of their money to leverage a $100,000 loan. You can't use their money to pay back an existing loan. This has got to be all new stuff. Second, you've got the non-discrimination policy. And that happens to be the, you're following all these already. You're dealing with federal money. It's nothing new, except that they want you to have a policy in place that specifically you're going to do these things, that you're not going to discriminate on the basis of race, color, or national origin. You're not going to discriminate for as far as housing goes under the Fair Housing Act. You've got the Rehabilitation Act, 1973. You've got disability. You've got ADA, 1990. You've got to follow all those requirements. No age discrimination. And the Americans, doubled up here, the Americans with Disability Act. There's two different laws that affect those, but you can't discriminate on any of those bases when you're allocating money, giving out contracts, providing resources. That's the shorter one to read, simply because it's totally by reference to federal statutes. The record retention policy is the next one you'll be adopting if you pass this tonight. And it has, as I stated, some things that are maybe a little more lenient than you would think under our current policy, but these are minimums for any of the money used or activities gone into or equipment purchased, records that have to be maintained for at least 5 years after the end of the project, the last money spent. And you got to spend all the money, I think, by December 31st, 2024. So all records have to be retained at least for 5 years after that period. The next is a resolution to determine if you got an eligible project that you can spend the money on. Again, some nice subjective terms, but with some checklists, questions asked, you determine if a project can be done using rescue plan money.
Is this resolution identical to that first one?
I don't know which one you're looking at.
Well, it's the one you just talked about. It's the policy for the expenditure of American Rescue Plan, it's the one you just spoke
We haven't
about.
touched that one. That was, what you got is, I don't know what you got looking in front of you. You got the cover resolution. Yeah,
The first one was allowable costs and cost principles, Mayor.
Yeah, they're two different ones. They're very similar.
They're not identical.
you start off the first lead in and it'll adopt a particular policy.
Well, you're leaving on your own.
Well, between me and Tammy, you can scream at one of us. Tammy's your point person. She's doing all the work and I just get to talk about it. But if you read through these policies, certain things, if they look like they're getting off the tracks, it's identified, Tammy's the person to go to and say, there's something, we got a dozen things going on. This doesn't look right. Tammy's the one, she's your police officer to watch, make sure all the policies are followed. You've got a resolution for property management policy. That applies to, one of the things you can do with this, you can buy equipment, you can buy tools, you can buy machinery. With the rescue plan, this is the policy on how you have to deal with that. Basically, if you buy a dump truck with rescue plan money and you sell it before within that operational period, you got to give them their money back. And that's that property management. That's probably a big point, the property management. It's just an explanation of you're using their money to buy things, what you can do with them, what you can't do with them. You've got in your packet, you've got the financial and internal control policy. I was told today that they're going to commit some surgery on that one, so you will not be adopting that one tonight. One other one that you'll get that in May, one other one you get in May is the conflicts policy. I think I mentioned the other night, some of you, the conflicts policy, when it gets to you next month, won't be a big change except for one, I see as one big thing. We've talked about in the last few months, the town's conflicts policy, which you've adopted. And The only big difference between the two is that the federal is a standard that Bill and I are accustomed to. It may be okay, but if it looks bad, you can't do it. The appearance of impropriety is included in the federal policy. But that's what you have before you tonight are half a dozen policies that are in your packet. You are adopting. The internal control policy has been removed for this month, and you'll get the conflicts policy next month also.
So any questions for Ron, council? So, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the allowable cost and cost principles for American Rescue Act policy, the non-discrimination policy, the record retention policy, the eligible project policy, and the property management policy.
So moved.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Thank you, Ron.
Can I just ask, it seems like a pertinent, appropriate time to ask, at the February meeting, I mentioned I requested a workshop, a special workshop about the ARP money, so we could go through what is eligible and what's not for our benefit and also for the public's benefit. And I just wondered where we were. We're gonna be scheduling that at some point.
We are at some point. We've got to schedule some budget workshops. I'm gonna kind of mention that in my comments this evening. And we can throw that in there too.
That actually is a budget.
I mean, it's kind of budget.
What it is, yeah.
Well, I think we need to let the public know what our process is gonna be a little bit and how we're gonna consider public input on that. ARP money is a unique situation.
Also, it keeps changing,
Mhm.
like daily. Like I said, through all day today from 8 until 5 o'clock, and it's just constantly more changes in the guidance and.
We voted, didn't we? Yeah, great.
Kara Malonzi describes it as we're flying the plane while they're still building.
That's right.
Right,
That's
right.
right.
I get that. I just don't want the public to think we're not gonna consider their input as we're going forward with this.
Yeah, the amount of money is not gonna change, it's just they're hoping they'll lessen the restrictions.
Great, thank you. Thanks for being that person that has to listen to day after day of the rules.
All right, next agenda item is a planning board memo asking town council to consider initiating a petition to close the remainder of Buckeye Street.
You want to handle that, please? Thank you.
So in your agenda packet, you have a memo, and I'm just going to be referencing that, but I can give you a little bit more context. At the last planning board meeting, the planning board heard an applicant who wanted to close a portion of the right-of-way to the west, which the town, if that were to be closed, would gain about 21 feet of dedicated space. It would not be right-of-way anymore. Then there is right-of-way between the Cragmont parcel, the north parcel, and the southern parcel. The planning board is making a recommendation that you all initiate an application to close the balance of that right-of-way only between those parcels because that's what you're entitled to close. If that were to be closed, it's about 42 feet wide, 202 feet long. That, along with the potential 20-foot strip to the west, would constitute about a quarter of an acre of park space that would be unencumbered by the existing platted right-of-way.
This would essentially connect the two sides of the park, right?
It would not be a recombination of the parcels, but it would remove the right-of-way space that is between the parcels. Yes.
So what is particular action you're asking for council? I'm not clear about that last sentence.
So if you all would need to vote to initiate that application process, and I would put all of that together and take it to planning board. And it's a bit of a cumbersome process compared to the other things that we
Right.
do, but that's how that would start.
Any other questions for Jessica? So I'd entertain a motion if that council vote to initiate the application project to close this portion of this
Buckeye Street.
Buckeye Street.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Policy C.
So this is a policy prioritizing the purchase of electric vehicles. I'm happy to read it if you'd like me to, but essentially what it does is, it's gonna, as a town, as we look to purchase vehicles, we are also gonna look at comparable electric options for those vehicles and not just the gas option. So, but, with that being said, we're also gonna look at cost, practicality, and timeliness. But we do want to be, increasing our fleet with EVs if at all possible.
Great. Any questions for Josh?
So if there were two vehicles that were comparably equipped and both could do the job, one was EV and one was gas powered, and all the costs factored comparably, the EV would get the priority, correct?
Yes, based on this policy, that's correct.
I would just like to speak in support of this. I think it's a smart move. It doesn't tie our hands in any way, but it prioritizes what I think is the future of transit.
I think so too.
And
All members of council agree with that?
I think there's other things that we'll need to talk about when we go down that road, but for now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, any other questions for Josh on this? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the policy of purchasing electric vehicles when a comparable EV exists?
We don't need a motion.
I'm asking for a motion.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll make that motion, yes.
Great, thank you. No other discussion, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Acceptance of park amenities for Craigmont Park.
All right, so what is before you is coming from Michael, who is the commander at the VFW. With the addition of the walking path being completed at Craigmont Park, the VFW obviously wants to be involved in community projects, and this is one of the projects that they have submitted to me, and I am submitting it to you guys for approval. They'd like to construct and maintain a workout station down there along the path.
I spoke with Michael about this last week, and he explained that they selected this design in part because it has a small footprint, but allows for a dozen or so different types of exercises. So it seems like a really wonderful thing that they're trying to do.
All right. Any further questions for Josh? If not, entertain a motion to approve the acceptance of the project as presented.
So moved.
Great. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I have to note that this is the second community partnership tonight, between this and then the beautification committee's efforts at Lakeview with their raised garden beds. And I just want to note that how fortunate we are to have community groups that step up and do what they can to make all of our facilities better.
Yeah, 100%.
That's right. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Josh. So we are going to have a public hearing to add text for mobile food vendors and mobile food courts. Could I have a motion that we open the public hearing?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jesse.
If you think this is something you've seen before, you are correct. We did the mobile food truck and food court ordinance. And we tried really hard to make everyone happy with it. And in the process, we violated some regulations in the North Carolina Administrative Code by accident. We had worked really closely with the county, but somehow these did not get caught in that process. So I apologize for that. So in bold, you'll see that we do use clarifying language for temporary use as opposed to a land use permit. And then items I, J, K, and L roll back some things that we thought we could do. A food vendor itself cannot put out seating. They can go somewhere that puts out seating, but they themselves cannot do that. They may not have permanent water or sewer connections. They must use a commissary kitchen. They can be permanently parked next to a commissary kitchen and use that facility, but they cannot make permanent connections. Propane tanks can be inspected by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. That is a safety option that we are going to exercise. And then we clarify that the regulations for like the temporary use permit do not apply when you're having a non-commercial private event on private property when that event is non-reoccurring and is a temporary duration. So birthday parties and all of that good stuff with your fun food trucks this does not apply. And I think, and with site requirements, we added some language about spaces that are used by the food vendors need to be indicated on that plan. So this gets us right. It maintains the integrity of what we're trying to achieve with some public safety accommodations and considerations, but it keeps us good with the state.
Great, thank you. Does any member of the public wish to speak? Hearing none, I entertain a motion that we close the public hearing.
So,
Great, thank you, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Great. And opposed, no. And so Jessica, the changes in here were all driven by state statutes?
Completely, yep.
That's very good, thank you. Any questions for Jessica?
Thank you for your work. I know it's been a torturous process on this.
You know, food trucks are a difficult ordinance to write across the state. And after this, I have volunteered ours to several jurisdictions in Western North Carolina, and they've been very appreciative. So thank you for your help.
Thank you, Jessica.
Do you anticipate any of these changes causing any issues with any of the existing?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. The seating one in particular, is that?
Actually, that's not so much the issue. Permanent water and sewer hookups are a violation. And that has to do with potential cross-contamination. You either are a building or you are a vehicle. You cannot be both.
Right. But these are driven by state statute.
Yeah.
You simply don't have a choice. Oops, I'm sorry. Let's see, to entertain a motion to approve ordinance 0-22-02 as presented.
is that the food court?
It is, yeah. Yes, it is.
So moved.
Thank you, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. All right, Mr. Sneed, do you have anything for us this evening?
I have nothing new for the town until the legislature goes back into session.
And town manager?
Sure, a couple things. We will be closed this Friday for Good Friday. And then I want to give you an update on FEMA. So I think patience and persistence pays off. I came to you before telling you that we were not getting fully funded for certain ones. Well, now that's changed. So our Greenway work is going to be fully funded by FEMA. So now we don't have to come up with any of that money, which we were going to have to come up with about $50,000. So that's great news. The golf course bridge is going to be fully funded with FEMA and North Carolina Emergency Management money. So we're not to pay into that. And I think we're much closer to getting a substantial amount for the stream restoration work. Where before they were only going to give us about 12,000, now it's over 100. So
Excellent.
it's been, I'm glad we've waited.
That's good news. That's good news. Maybe the time we get the money, we'll be able to get people to do it and material.
That's a different story.
That's right. Council, anything for this evening for the public?
I'd just like to draw the public's attention. It was in the consent agenda, so I think it kind of got skipped over a bit, but we approved a letter of support for the Martin Luther King Jr. marker. And we got a really great packet of information, of research that had been done about Martin Luther King Jr.'s visit here with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1964. And oh my goodness, I learned so much from this whole, it's just an amazing story and fascinating and also kind of sad, but it's in the packet. It's in the agenda packet, so it's online, correct?
Should be. That's right.
If you're curious and want to go in there and read it, and I would assume it was the Ann Chesney Smith, who we're all familiar with our museum. She's the one that wrote the whole thing, and I'm sure after it's all, this was an application to the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail, and if it gets approved and so on, I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about it. But I just learned so much, and I had no idea that we had such a prominent role in some of these issues. So I just encourage you to take a look. You'll have to dig a little. It's hard to find these things in the agenda packets, I'm sure, but totally worth looking for and reading it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Well, I wish everyone a happy Easter, happy Passover. I hope you have a great long weekend. If you're not a tax accountant, you get a long weekend. I'm complaining about that. So anyway, thanks for being here this evening, and for staff for your reports. We really appreciate that very much. We do. And the beautification committee. You hung in there to the end, and we'll thank you too. We appreciate y'all being here, so thank you. And we are going to go into a closed session to discuss the potential acquisition of property as permitted by North Carolina General Statutes, 143-318, et cetera, and to consult with the town attorney as permitted by North Carolina Statutes, 143-318, et cetera. So, motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.